department class okay. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Canales,
Here.
Mr. Ambeline,
Here.
Ms. Greenfield,
Here.
Mr. Green,
Here.
Mr. McLean,
Here.
Mr. Romero is absent, Ms. Rivera.
Here. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News and Courier News, filed with municipal clerk and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 15th, 2022. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. All right, my wordy welcome. Thank you. Welcome to the March 13th, 2023 meeting of the Bernardsville Borough Council. This meeting is being conducted in person in the council chambers in Borough Hall and is being broadcast live on YouTube and on Zoom to make it as convenient as possible for residents to attend the meeting. Members of the public who are here in person and those attending remotely on Zoom will be given the opportunity to comment at appropriate times during the meeting in accordance with the following guidelines. Members of the public will be allowed to speak during the open session and during formal public hearings on the agenda, including public hearings on ordinances. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker, which will be monitored and enforced by the borough clerk, who has a lovely little timer over there. Comments containing offensive, profane, or indecent language or language constituting hate speech will not be permitted. Remote participants will be muted unless they are unmuted by the clerk, and remote participants will not be able to unmute themselves. The clerk will mute remote speakers at the expiration of their 3 minutes of allotted time, or if they make any inappropriate or offensive comments. All speakers, whether in person or on Zoom, shall state their names and address before making their comments. Speakers on Zoom shall activate their cameras so that they can be seen by members of the governing body and audience. Failure of the governing body to provide a live broadcast of this meeting or technological problems encountered during the course of the meeting that affect remote viewing and or participation will not invalidate this meeting or any action taken, including but not limited to the adoption of any ordinance, resolution, or motion. Got all that? All right. The lawyer wrote it. All right, we have a presentation tonight, so we are thrilled to have the Garden Club here. You've got a lot of members, which is exciting to have you all here. And I can just, if you stand on the X, that way the
Anthony told us to stand here.
Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you for including the Garden Club on your agenda tonight. This is a presentation of our proposal for the planting beds at the center of Walcott Square, the triangle. I've got only 9 or 10 slides. I think I'll speak for 10 or 11 minutes. And I ask that you hold your questions until the end. It'll just make it much simpler to respond. You've probably seen the Garden Club all over town, in the triangle, down the train station with the window boxes and around the gardens at the library. We also provide fresh flowers every week in the library during the school year. And we do therapy at the DNA Adult Day Center and at the Baskin Ridge Senior Center. So we're a group of very robust volunteer women who I just learned have been serving Bernardsville for nearly 100 years. When's the anniversary?
It's going to be 90 soon.
It's going to be 90.
It was founded in 1930.
1930?
Yes.
So almost 100 years. Pretty good. Anthony?
Aye.
The proposal we're presenting is the work of the Civic Committee of the Garden Club. The committee members here tonight are Rosalie Baker, whom probably everybody knows. She's a longtime member of the Garden Club and also involved in the community gardens up at the Belcher House since its inception. Eileen Bernash, who is a master gardener certified under the auspices of Rutgers University. Marilyn D. here, also trained at Rutgers in landscape design. And Kay Paragamo, our past president and an avid gardener, is not with us tonight, but I think she might be on Zoom, I'm not sure. Also, we have Barbara Pironi, who is the president. There you are. And Pat, where's Pat? Oh, there you are. Pat Kennedy Grant, who is the treasurer of the Garden Club, plus lots of members for the hearing squad. Next, I'll speak first about the challenges and the opportunities in the Olcott Square. The challenges are pretty obvious. Olcott, the small garden in Olcott Square sits in a relatively large space that's formed by the buildings that surround Olcott Square. That's the coffee shop on one side, the Palmer building, and the closet store. So it's a big space, and it's a little garden in a big space. And then on top of that, make matters worse, it's the home of a very unruly crowd of signs, which you see here. It's pretty awful. So it's a little sea of green in a sea of tarmac and traffic. This view here is when you're coming from Morristown heading south. And I took that picture. I'm a better designer than I am photographer. I took that picture when the Christmas tree is still up. So you see there's a big tree behind it. On the other hand, it presents tremendous opportunity because it's right smack in the middle of Bernardsville. It's a really, really important place. It's an opportunity for us to remind ourselves what a great place Bernardsville is. And to also say to visitors that there is, in fact, a there here. So it's important. Anthony? Oh, I'm sorry, back up one. I gotta have myself. Sorry. When the Civic Committee first met, we tried to define our design intentions for the garden. We said we wanted to make the garden that can hold its own all year round, winter as well as spring and summer. It could have impact to both pedestrians and drivers, trucks and cars racing by, and could compete with the tremendous visual static of all the signs. We wanted to make a place that had some presence in the center of town. We said we wanted to create seasonal interest with plants that have a variety of texture and form and color, but also to ensure that the combined effect of all of the separate plants of everything together will be greater than the simple sum of the individual plants. In other words, to create a synergy and harmony. And practically speaking, we want to be sure that we comply with any traffic state regulations. And we want to provide a garden that's not very, very difficult to maintain. In addition to that, some of the members are also affiliated with the library, and those individuals as educators suggested that we also include signs for each of the plants with the common name and the Latin name to use as a teaching opportunity, especially for kids. It's a nice idea. Now,
You just come just in the front row.
want to sit up here? Please sit. Can you shrink the drawing a little bit? Shrink it a little bit so you can see the top of it. Yeah, that's. So in this drawing, north, where you see a little N, is facing Morristown. So that's north on Route 202. To start at the very beginning, Alcott Square isn't square. It's really a triangle. And it's a triangle with geometry that's very strong and very simple. The garden is a circle within a triangle. I guess I should figure out how to use this thing. Okay, there's a little north sign. So it's a circle within a larger triangle, surrounded by a sidewalk on all sides, and bisected by a pathway that goes from basically traffic light to traffic light. The paved areas all around here in the circle form two, basically more or less, or roughly symmetrical planting beds, which is right here and right here, this stippled area on the plan. We want to try to exploit these simple forms to give this little garden as much oomph or presence as possible, to optimize the simple geometry that's already there. A good way to do that is to begin with evergreens. Yeah. Okay, in this drawing, we're showing a planting scheme that uses evergreens to bolster the circular form and help mark the pathway across the triangle. In the drawing, each plant type is marked with the red letter to corresponding to a silhouette of that plant shown beside the plant. I'll point out each plant type as I go, and you can see. So it's really hard to see. This plant here, marked A, and there's a second, a third, and a fourth, corresponds to this silhouette right here. Letter A is a dwarf pencil point juniper is what we're proposing. There are a pair of these at each point where the pathway intersects the circle. So there's a pair there, and there's a pair there. And they act as gateposts or as markers as you enter the circle. This is a dense, cone-shaped evergreen with silvery blue needles. It tops out at about 4 or 5 feet. It's actually, if you look at the silhouette right here, it's basically like me without my head. It's about this shape and size when it's fully mature. Next are a series of concentric rings that go around each half circle here, there, and there. The closest to the paving, to the circle, right around here and right around here, is a fescue or a similar plant. That's a low evergreen grass that really acts as a ground cover and acts as an edge around the paved area, the brick paving of the circle. Next, B is an inkberry holly. That's that plant right there. It's called an Ilex glabra strongbox. This was bred by growers who were trying to come up with an alternative to boxwood. So it serves the same purpose. It can be clipped tight and low without losing its branches. And it provides a kind of a tailored edge around the center of the circle. And it's also a good contrast to something like the fescue, which is a kind of a bluish grass. This is a kind of a traditional green color, and it's an alternative to a box. And that connects the plant A here, goes around and connects at the other end. So it's kind of like 2 posts sticking up and then a low green hedge connecting the two, following the outside circle of the paved area. And then finally, the third concentric ring out is this here and here. And that's an encore azalea. And that's a plant, it's an evergreen plant with a broad leaf, a bigger leaf than the box. So there's a contrast. And it grows to about 3 or 4 feet, and it's an evergreen, but it has the advantage of it the fact that it also blooms, and it blooms twice, which is why they call it encore. So it blooms in the spring and it blooms again throughout the summer and I think again in the fall. So those come in a variety of different colors, rose and red and pink and orange, even purple. So that kind of sets the palette of intense, vibrant, hot colors that we intend to use for the rest of the garden. So we want this concentric hedge that goes from ground cover to about a 1 foot boxwood type thing to about 3 feet to act as a kind of arms embracing this central space like a garden room. And we also want it to be the backbone of the garden because it's all evergreen and it'll be there no matter, you know, what month it is. In addition to those evergreens, there are 3 more types. You can see that there's a plant here and there at the 2 planted points of the triangle. And that's this plant. I think it's labeled as D or E, I can't even see it. And that's a dwarf blue spruce. Just get you the next page. It's a dwarf blue spruce called baby blue eyes, and it gets after 10 years to be about 6 feet tall. That tall, but it takes 10 years to get there. And it's also this cone shape, like you see, like a pyramidal shape. So the tall part is thinner, and we're thinking that that will be less of a barrier, a sight problem, and it gets wider as it goes down. So the wide part is at the bottom where you don't need to see. These are beautiful trees, they're specimen trees, and they're there to provide interest and kind of hold down the corners of the planted parts of the triangle. Finally, F, which is down here, is a Mugos pine, and that we're thinking of for these pieces right here. That's a low-growing pine, and it kind of marks those corners, the beginning of the pathway into the circle. And it also, we're hoping, will prevent people from trampling on these corners here, which always get beat up by the pedestrians coming across here. You can imagine why they would do that, but they do. And those are about 18 inches high when they're fully grown. It takes a long time to get there.
Oh.
Thanks. Great. The evergreens, as I said, form the backbone of the garden. It's architecture, and they'll stay all winter long. The perennials, on the other hand, are plants that die down to the ground in the winter, but always come back in the summer. So you plant them once and they keep on going, but you don't see them in the wintertime. And where we plan to use those is in and around the evergreens, especially at the corners, but all around the edge, and then at these corners here too. The plants listed there proposed are really suggestions because I think the best way to go about this is to go to one of the, or a number of the nurseries around and find what's available. There's so many different possibilities, but what we're looking for are perennials that have a long bloom time, that don't need to be staked or deadheaded, that have vibrant colors, the same kinds of colors, reds and deep pinks and oranges and maybe some yellows, that are practical. Last thing I want to say was we're looking to keep those at about 24 inches. So they're kind of at the outer edges and they're the lower plants, but they're still significant plants. Next is bulbs and annual. These you haven't selected, but they again go in and around the evergreens, around the edge of the evergreens and around the edge of the triangle. What you see here on the slide is a tulip mix that the garden club planted last autumn. So this is what we can expect to see in a few weeks, I hope. maybe more than 2 weeks. I think it's supposed to snow tonight.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Next. Now, last. And at least as important as anything else, we're proposing to bring a tree into the center of the circle, the center of the little garden room. A flowering tree like a Japanese cherry or a redbud. It would be planted in what is known as a Versailles planter. You've seen them, they're just these big wooden planters, and you can disassemble them and take them away when you don't need them. And the idea is that this tree would be brought in and out twice a year at the same time that the Christmas tree is brought in and out. It would be a replacement, it would be swapped out for the Christmas tree. And we could even select it so that it blooms at Easter time. So it's kind of a, you know, a yin and a yang. When we discussed it, we were worried, we still are worried, that people will think this is too much of an expense or too much trouble. Incidentally, it would look like that. That box at the bottom is meant to represent this Versailles planter, and it would be a small tree, but it would start up high, so the bulk of it would be walk under it or walk around it. The center of this garden needs oomph. It needs mass and something in the center to hold its own against this, you know, crazy wilderness of traffic and farming. So it's a really important part of any design. The center of this triangle should not be a void. It shouldn't be empty. So that's our way of dealing with that problem. And that's basically the end of the design portion of the presentation. In terms of the schedule, we want to try to do a soil test any day now, but we expect the soil to be very good, test well. The removals, we'll ask the town, and that John has already said it's no problem, to take out the plants that are there. And they're made up, a lot of them are good plants, but there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. They don't add up to anything. So we're going to move them to a new home, we hope, different places. And that would probably happen in mid-May, because it should happen after these tulips that are already in place come up and bloom and start to fade. So we think it'll be about the middle of May. It depends on the weather. And then we'll do a little bit of soil preparation if necessary, and we have to do a survey of the irrigation, because we're not really sure where the irrigation is right now. You can see it, but you can't get an overall picture of it. And that we would do immediately following the removals. And then we hope that we could be planting in the second half of May when the tulips are gone. And we're a pretty optimistic bunch. So we're hoping for a ribbon cutting in early June. So that's it. Any questions?
Wow.
The concept of a Versailles planter, could that concept be replicated with an evergreen? So instead of cutting down a tree every winter, we could just swap out an evergreen in the winter and keep a living evergreen. So if you're gonna move the flowering tree, instead of cutting a tree down from somewhere in the forest and swapping it in the middle, have a second, so you're swapping out the Versailles planters and keeping a living evergreen there.
Yeah. Well,
You don't get like
For the Christmas.
for the Christmas
Yeah.
tree.
So
So if we're gonna swap it out,
the.
a living organism.
Yeah.
a Christmas tree in a planter. It wouldn't be as big
It
as
wouldn't be as big,
It wouldn't be as big.
but you could put a 10 to 12, 15 footer in there.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Especially if you started up high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're starting up high.
And
Yeah.
how are you gonna move it? That's.
Well, I think they're both have to move their new forklift that we bought in last week.
But it just said.
I said they're both gonna have to move the new loader that we bought last week.
Thinking.
We've got a new loader.
Me too. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so we could move it.
And you're over everything.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah, to get it out of there.
So there was no budget. I was waiting to hear what we were gonna have to contribute to my budget.
That question would come up eventually. We don't have a very hard and fast budget right now because we think we'd be able to negotiate a good price for a lot of the plants from the nurseries around here. Hopefully we'll be able to. And we also don't know how much of the work we can do ourselves and how much cost of labor will be. So I'm thinking that it'll be around 10,000, but we're not asking the town for anything. We expect to pay for that. It would be nice if this happened.
But
Is that a general budget item or is that open space or can that?
We're just talking about that.
oh,
I don't think it's catch maybe together.
yeah, but I think if our public works can assist. in
Assist with labor.
yeah, so it's.
Yeah.
Yes. I
And
think
with
that would be-
all certain materials.
And if we can find a way to make it come out of open space fund, we could probably pay for it. I don't want to speak for the whole council that we want to.
Yeah, what I think.
Yeah, turn off. Sorry.
So the general budget is generally very constrained, but if you can come out of shade tree or the open space budget, those things are often easier.
Well, I would think.
The shade tree fund.
Maybe be a nearby developer that would mind that would be nicer.
Yeah,
Right, we could,
yeah, well, there's opportunities, so.
opportunities, yeah.
We don't want the cost to stop the project, so.
Yes.
We'll be happy to work with you on that.
I'm enthusiastic about this.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, yeah, I think it'll be.
We're all really enthusiastic.
I was gonna, do you have any idea with the tree, regardless whether we do the swap in and out? The original tree, that you're gonna put in there, where are you gonna put it on the off time? Is there
We
like a library?
thought we would find a place to park it in the library, around the library. Or I originally thought it could just be driven down to here, Borough Hall, and just tucked in a safe place where it's sunny and
Yeah.
protected. But it doesn't need to go inside if that's part of what you're asking.
Yes, it's just maintenance and just
Anyway,
trying to figure out logistics.
you could move it to my yard.
That is.
David, can I just add something that
Yes,
the civic committee presented to the executive board of our club? We have over 60 members.
Wow.
You know, just a little presentation to get their okay before we came to you to get your okay. And there were just a couple of points that we wanted to make, and I just wanted to read these to you if that's okay. One is that we did, you know, who, what, where, why, when, where, and how, the journalistic thing. And under why, you wanted to have a beautiful new garden in Alcott Square when the borough celebrates its 100th birthday in 2024. And to be the jewel in the crown of the club as it celebrates its upcoming 95th anniversary in 2020.
95th, that's what I was trying to remember.
Okay, yeah.
That's great.
It's coming up.
Yeah.
And we thought that moving the tree and the planter up to the library, it's very close. And we're all always at the library, you know, anyway, you know, some former librarians here from the Bernardsville Library, retired, semi-retired. And, you know, we work on the gardens there, so we could, you know, keep an eye on the tree easily if it's there, and it's just up the hill. But wherever, you know, it would work.
Figure it out.
Mhm.
We want to see the size of it.
I wanted to ask about the signage because in the first one, there's those big signs and then you have the evergreens and how, I mean, I'm assuming you guys thought about all of that already.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Separate myself as a citizen. I didn't want to bring the garden into it. The signage is awful, and I think it's accumulated over time. I drove past the Basking Ridge Town Center, and they managed somehow to get all their signs in like a 4-foot. And I just wonder if there isn't some way where we couldn't either move some signs or consolidate some.
The problem we
Get
have,
rid of.
compared to Basking Ridge is that's a state highway, and so they put the signs up. Basking
Right.
Ridge, it's their street, so
It's
they can do what
theirs.
they want.
Right,
Those are state, they put them up and we'd have to ask their permission if we wanted to change them or move them, but we can always ask.
that's what I said. Why can't we?
All they can say is no.
Who would do that?
Probably, our Public Works Department.
Is that you?
No, it doesn't. Well,
How do we initiate that? How do we get that going?
we could do that from here, yeah, write it down.
I think, some of them might be able to be moved to a less, obvious place.
Yeah,
Some can, I think, might be able to be moved, some can be consolidated, and some maybe we can get rid of. I don't know.
yeah, they are unsightly.
We could also take a look at the folding signs that
Yeah,
there's
that was-
abundance of all over the place. It's
Oh,
there.
temporary signs, maybe they somehow graphically integrated into the big highway sign.
Maybe they couldn't be there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe that's
that'd be
not
great.
a good spot for them. I think particularly after you do this planting, there really won't be a spot
Yeah.
necessarily, other than right on the sidewalk and then they're.
Well, a lot
blocking.
of times they are on the sidewalk, and then they get blown a little bit.
I-
Suffer and they ruin, you know, when we plant.
They fall on your purse.
We squash them, which makes.
Yeah, I mean, they could be on. Helping side.
Well, yeah, we should say, these are the locations, we should take a look.
Well, there
These are the
is.
Location, and these are the choices you have on where you can put them.
Zoning has a list of
Period, yeah.
where you're allowed to put them.
Could they move to the train station? Is there one there?
They want.
They need to be seen.
They're not visible enough.
But I think we can consider, we can discuss where to go.
Yeah, well,
Because-
you,
But this would be the impetus for getting that area
cleaned up.
globally cleaned up.
Yeah, we'll talk to housing and, because it's part of the zoning, where you can put signs, so.
But my main concern is that the one evergreen on the north side, that would be directly in front of that 287.
Yeah, the 287 sign starts at 6'8". I measured it, which is a typical door height.
Okay.
So, the evergreen wouldn't get that high. It's quite a bit low, and it'll take a long time for it to get to its final height.
And it can be pruned.
But,
And it can be pruned.
and it can be
Yes.
pruned, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
any other questions?
Yeah, thank
Was there
you.
an approval needed from us?
I don't think
I
so.
don't know.
No, I think so.
No, no resolution to let them proceed, because they're gonna tear our plants, don't they?
They've always done it.
Well, we can do a motion. Well,
Stop them.
maybe one suggestion, did you design this? You the designer?
Yeah, I meant to say, I'm acting as a design consultant for the civic committee. I'm a retired architect, I have a degree in architecture from Harvard Graduate School of Design, and I'm also a crazy gardener.
Well, the only thing I might suggest too, if we look at the design and think of the state signs that are there and present alternatives to the state sign. So for example, if you take down the signs pointing to the different towns, we will replace it with a lower level one that might be against a nicer background that looks less, you know, thank you, Trenton, for the sign. So maybe we incorporate some signs in
Yeah,
this.
we're gonna.
So Tom, what you're asking for is that they had specific recommendations about how those signs could be approved?
I think so, and then also like maybe design into the area where you would put some of the promotional signs that in a controlled way. And, yeah, I know this is frowned upon, but maybe some space for variable message sign in the future.
Yeah,
Um,
a standard, changeable sign.
Yeah, yeah, they don't look great, but if they're incorporated to an overall design, they make it.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
Like,
the garden club board is meeting tomorrow morning. So can we report that you all, the council.
I'd like to make a motion to move the design forward in phase one of
We don't need to, if we don't need to move something forward, yeah.
All right, all in favor of the plan? We're on page.
Aye.
Thank you. All the hard work.
Yes.
I love the train station has been in not great shape and those planters just cheer it up. They look so nice. Thank you for doing that. Really just makes it.
She's already solved the problem.
We got the signs already.
She's got the sign figured out.
It's gone.
Maybe they should change the signs after we do the plantings, they make it lower than they'll be. There's what?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go into that.
Okay, I think this could do a very short executive session. We will be tomorrow. Personnel issue, so.
We need to do that before the rest of the agenda, right now. Okay.
Check.
Proceed to executive session.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so you just
No.
Okay. All right. We are now, have an open session for items that don't have a public hearing. So if anyone in the public would like to be heard, please remember the, whatever were the conditions that I gave in the beginning. So give your name and address. If you're on Zoom, please turn on your camera. And we will limit your comments to 3 minutes, so be prepared for the alarm. We'll start with anybody that's here in person. Would anyone in the audience like to be heard?
Hello again. Fran Daly, and I live in Hunterdon County. I'm your library director, as you know. And I just wanted to react to your proposed budget that, there are two things that it's a mixed bag. For one, we're grateful, and I know that you understand that, but I have to say on behalf of my staff and for the community we serve, that this is a bit of a hardship and will be a struggle to maintain the same level of service that we hope to. But two, that thank you for hearing us out and for your consideration and for what you were able to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think maybe we only have one public sector, so. no one can. Do we have anybody on Zoom who would like to be heard?
Not seeing anybody raising their hand.
Not seeing any? No. All right, then I will close the public session. No, you know what? Did we change this? Oh, yeah, okay, this is the, we're not gonna have a public hearing, so, who would like to move this?
Can I just say something?
Well, since we're sending over to the planning board the revised ordinance, can that number 35 be reduced to 30? Would that be possible or not?
I think that's a substantial,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
because we had the number 35 in here, she wanted to know if we could change it to 30.
We could, but we would have to amend and continue the public hearing on the ordinances amended.
Okay, well, that's what we're doing, though we're already amending tonight.
Right. And we got.
I just thought that
Good, yes.
already amending, that we could just amend a little more.
Yeah, I'm not sure we want to amend down anymore. If anything, I was questioning whether 35 was enough.
Yeah, and I think, Tom, you had your transaction, what do you call it?
Yeah. Take it from the top.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You're gonna share?
No, not yet.
No, it's not.
That's for the budget.
Right.
So currently under the zoning for the downtown area, it seems that what was recommended and adopted when the zoning was put in place was a modified version of something called transect zoning. And if you think about like a telescope, where it gets denser and denser and then it gets wider and wider as you telescope it out. So that was the idea behind this movement called transect zoning. And the idea is that you create forms. So in the center core of a town, you want buildings this size, this wide, this far setback. And then at different transects, you can expand it out as you get more and more land and it's become less dense. So when we did our zoning, we did not specify a density, a residential density limit. Okay, we didn't say that. We said your building can be this tall, this wide, this far setback. So theoretically, someone can come by and say, I want to do micro apartments. And you could fit hundreds of those micro apartments within the framework of that type of zoning. So the zoning board, members of the zoning board, so not the board officially, but members of the board reached out and said, life would be so much better for us and easier if we had that guardrail of the density per acre in that area. And I happen to agree. The other thing that has happened is that type of zoning really doesn't matter much, whether you're doing it under the underlying zoning or whether you're doing it through a redevelopment plan. So there's really no incentive to do the redevelopment plan where, or as much as we would like, where you can control all those design features if you were going to give additional density. So when we were asked to look at establishing a density zone, I looked at that transect. I went back to the textbooks and I said, so it's not a T1, which is like the core where you have like, 17-story high rises. It's not a T2 either. It's probably a T3. And that's where I put that idea of what the density ought to be, and I put it on the lower end. So that's where I came up with the number 35. And I would say if you were doing a very moderate apartment complex, moderate size in terms of the unit sizes, just trying to get as much in, not quite being a micro apartment, that 35 is about half of what I think you'd be able to fit in, more or less. So I think if you want to, the thought is, if you want to do more than that, you really need to come to the governing body and discuss what is the town getting out of this vis-a-vis a redevelopment. So that was the rationale behind it. That's probably as scientific as it's going to get. A lot of it is a judgment call.
How would you compare, how does this compare to other municipalities in the area?
In the area, so I think it's less than what we always fear, like the more, we talk about Morristown a lot, and that I would put those places at T2 in terms of their density. And there's wide ranges within those transects.
Okay.
But I think this puts us more at a town center.
But if we were comparing apple, like you said, it can't get more scientific, I'm just curious. If you said Morristown was X, if you said, Far Hills was Y, and our proposals is in the middle, or, I'm just.
Yeah, in the middle, closer to the lower end density.
Okay.
There's some very beautiful village type settings at that 30-35 unit per acre that you wouldn't realize, you would feel like this is not the city. This is just this is a quaint town at that density.
I still feel it's 5. I think it's closer to 30. And also, we also have to look at the lot coverage percentage. We have to look at the setbacks, and we have to re-examine the parking requirements for residential and retail versus restaurant. Because I think that I think it all has to be re-looked at and redone.
That's really not our job. That's the planning board. We don't get into that level of detail with the council. We can certainly ask them to look at those things.
I think that we should.
And just bear in mind, and I'm not quarreling whether it's 30 or 35, that's clearly, totally a council decision. But let's just say 30 for argument's sake. To go much less than that, just recognize you had a master plan reexamination. You had a study that looked at the downtown. You had a recommendation for the density you now have in place, vis-a-vis public comment, planning board hearings, council hearings on the ordinances, a ton of public input on a density that's higher now. So my only point, it's not a value call I'm making. What I'm saying is if you go much below that, then you may be contradicting your own master plan, which creates a whole different exposure. That's not to say.
But we have to also look at the unintended consequences of the zoning, which are the very big buildings on very little lots. And everyone knows when they see the plans, it's too big for the lot that it's on. That's unintended consequences. We have to take a look at what we did that got us there and fix what can be fixable, so we don't keep going through this. Why are they putting such a big building on there? Oh no, what are we gonna do? We have to look at it. It's not a big example.
And this is why I disagree, because it was an intentional consequence. When there was an entire committee that looked at these and said that within the downtown core, which had very specific specifications, they wanted to create a walkable area that had storefronts to the front of the sidewalk, that had parking that was behind the units, It was very thoughtful that those types of buildings is what was intended. Now, I know that you disagree.
Well, I disagree because, and I also, I talk to residents all the time. Nobody wants all these apartments, nobody. It's everywhere I go, I ask the same questions. Well, what do you think about this? What do you think of that? And I'm just telling you, nobody wants this to turn into apartmentville. So I understand what the zoning, what you wanted to do, but that's when nobody was building anything anywhere in Bernardsville. And I understand why it was done that way to spur the development, but now everybody's building every little piece of property. They're all gonna build these giant monstrosities.
So I would say that that was the intent. Now, if we want to say that we have a different intent and we want the planning board to go in a different direction, I think that's a different discussion. I'm not sure we all agree on this council that that's the direction we want to give.
Well, it's a discussion that I'd like to have.
And I think we can have it now. I personally think that we were right. I agree that the density needs to come down. We do not want micro apartments in this borough. We do not want 500 square foot flats. But we want to have a downtown that has parking that is concealed from the street. I'm stating my opinions, concealed from the street. We want to have a streetscape that's consistent in our downtown. And I think our current zoning offers that.
And part of what we're looking to do is balance the development, but if you do nothing, we're just gonna die. The town will be dead, with no
But
apartments
there's a
downtown.
balance. Oh, no, I'm not against apartments. I'm against the vast amount of apartments. And I think so are the majority of the residents. I think that when there was no building going on, people were like, oh, yes, we need this, we need this. But now I think we've gone the other direction too
We
far.
haven't built a thing yet. There's not a single building done or approved. They have to go through site plan.
Some of them.
But
But I think there's a balance. I'm just asking, I think that we've gone too far over the edge. I think we need to pull it back a little bit and have a balance.
that's what we just did by doing this 35. That's what we're doing right now.
If you start. I think it's fine. I think I'd like to see what the planning board has to say about it and what the recommendation is, but I think we need to look at the other factors as well.
So I agree with you, parking, and the planning board is currently deliberating on how to look at parking in different zones. I think that my opinion is, I agree with you, we should send back another statement to the planning board. Is the parking requirement good enough? I can tell you that the planning board fights over every parking spot in every application.
I know.
And they don't give up on anything.
You want to say something?
I was gonna say that a lot of, I guess there's differing opinions, but for the most part, residents who I've spoken to about development that's in the early stages, I guess that's what we're kind of talking about, that things that are either at the zoning board of adjustment or at the planning board, that they are aware of them and they are able to express their opinions at those meetings, which is great. I also think that it would probably be helpful to all of us to compare our, like, we have a vision of a walkable town. So what might be helpful is to go to some of the places that we want to, take pieces of Princeton and Summit and just see what their numbers are. And that was part of what I did when I was looking at, the numbers, like what does Berkeley Heights have and what does New Providence have, just to kind of gauge how it feels in real life. Because sometimes when you see it on a piece of paper, it does perhaps look like a monstrosity or it's too big for us. But when you're walking through the town, it doesn't feel that way.
To that point.
Because of the way it's planned out.
To your point, Christine, when the group, because I wasn't part of the initial race, but when they did the initial investigation, that's exactly what they did. Now, like John Zabel mentioned, sometimes you don't foresee everything. And this whole micro apartment situation was one that was not foreseen, that had to be dealt with. I don't think that there are assessments that gross to wrong.
That's not.
Okay, so can we just I mean, so what's the proposal then? I mean, is it bring questions to the planning board so that they consider it?
I don't know, this point of order real quick.
No, I'm sorry, you can't.
For the parliamentarian,
No,
No.
But do you want to bring those to the planning board?
Yes, I would like,
Questions?
I would like the
Well,
questions to be
Chad
addressed.
is your person, so.
Chad, I would like those questions addressed and reviewed by the planning board.
Can you send me a list of the ones that you would?
I can.
Thank you.
So what we're amending on this ordinance is section 2, where we're just putting in an exception for areas that are already declared an area in need of redevelopment, so that we're not pulling the rug out from people who have already done their initial engineering and their studies and whatever. So that is the amendment. So we will, Chad, you want to move that to amend and continue?
Glasses back on. We're still talking about 22-1907, right?
Number 6 on the agenda.
2023.
The standards of those amendments into.
I apologize. Go ahead, Gina, you got it.
Okay.
I moved my agenda.
I move to amend and continue the public hearing on ordinance 2023-1957 to March 27th, 2023 at 7 p.m. awaiting the planning board recommendation.
And then we will, go to second.
I'll second.
and we will refer the amended ordinance now to the planning board for
Right.
consideration.
And if you send me, along with the questions from Diane, if you send them to me, we'll move them. I'll bring this up at the same time.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, Commissioner Bowden, I was just gonna say something.
We're done.
So, Councilwoman, to your point, the downtown zoning standards already have a lot of those things in there, the building height, the setback, the coverage, the design standards. All you're doing with this, or all the planning board is doing is to add in another component.
I understand.
Yeah, just, so I'm just saying that a lot of those things were
Yes,
already.
I want all those things that are there already
That's fine.
reviewed. That's
Yeah.
all I'm asking. I would like them reviewed based on the experiences that we've had with the things that have come up to the planning board this past year. I would like to take that information into consideration and have them review those items. I'm fine to let this go to the planning board.
No, I just want for the public point that
Okay.
there, I don't want anyone to think there are no setbacks, there are no restrictions, that the original ordinance had all of that, it's just added that one line.
Okay, we'll need to vote on that sort of thing. All right, and we'll send that on to the planning board with the amendment.
We meet on Thursday. Let's make it
Yes.
the agenda for Thursday.
Resolutions, any that you want to discuss first?
I didn't have any thought.
Well, the budget, what did you say?
Well, that's.
Budget. Well, budget is on.
Budget is its own, yeah, we have to do that one separately, so. And the reason we did not do the swearing in of the police is that we postponed from last, we'll do it on the next meeting because we now have a new officer, so we wanted to do all of them together. At the chief's request, so next meeting, we will have our ceremony of swearing in for the new officers and lieutenants and captain. So we are appointing the police officer, we have a liquor license transfer. Anything anybody wants to discuss?
So, just so you're aware, the gentleman who is purchasing a liquor license is pregnant, I don't know if he wanted to introduce himself.
Yes.
He is also a member of a development team called Stone Creek, who you were designated for 85, so not to steal any of his thunder, but the desire, the hope is that the liquor license, which came from the old Thirsty Turtle, I think last time it was used, will find a home at 65 Morristown Road. That's the goal. So,
Which is the Audi dealership.
yeah, so I don't know if you want to hear from him before you vote on it. It might be a good thing.
Shall we? Would you
Sure,
like to say
yeah.
a few words? You just have to stand on the X.
This is maybe two.
This is 82 and 85.
So yeah, I'm Shelby Basic, thank you, it's on the agenda tonight. Two of the items, are ours that are on there. One is the transfer of liquor license. And then the second is for 65 Morristown Road. We're excited at the opportunity to bring life to the space at the Audi dealership. We plan to have a restaurant there, but probably as well to house our construction office. So we have a commercial construction company too. Pretty experienced in development and commercial construction, and yeah, looking forward to having a project in town.
So are we.
Thanks.
Yes, we're excited, and the offices will be on the second floor, and the first floor will bring.
Correct, that's the current concept. Yeah,
The outdoor eating area, and
no micro permits.
no, I.
That was part of the reason, that was part of the reason you're standing here tonight.
Yeah, that's the concept. The first floor would be the restaurant space, and the second floor would be the office space.
Yeah, we're excited.
Thanks.
It sounds great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. All right. So someone like to move? I also wanted to, 2384 is just welcome our new administrator, Nancy Malou. Will be starting on April 17th. I think, Tom, you're meeting with her tomorrow. Yeah.
She's joining her staff meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, so we're excited. I think the whole process went very well. We had 29 applications, which our consultant said is probably one of the best turnouts they've gotten for a position. And we interviewed 6 candidates, all of which were very well qualified. But Nancy had the best combination of everything we were looking for. She's got experience with redevelopment, with Main Street. She was a mayor herself at one point, so she knows both sides of the operations. So we're excited. Still bittersweet because we hate to see Tom go, but we're happy that Nancy is going to join us. So just wanted to welcome her. I think she's on here. So all right. We would like to move those.
I move that resolutions 2378 through 2385 be adopted.
A second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Ambeline?
Yes.
Mrs. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McCready?
Yes.
Mr. McCready?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
All right, and now we are introducing our 2023 budget. I believe, Jay, we're going to do part.
Yeah, do we introduce it, or do we introduce it first and then talk about it, or do we do the presentation first?
Yeah. We're gonna
Okay. So I'm gonna kick it off, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Tom.
Why does everybody always leave when we start presenting?
No. Whatever you hear.
The room. I'm kidding. But seriously, every year from players, when you say it's time to turn it.
So the first thing, just to set the reason for the presentation. So Al Riviero, as you can see, is not here. He's out of town. He's out of the country on business. So he asked that I introduce this, and then he'll be here in future sessions. There will be an opportunity for public comment or further public comment on it. But the first thing I want to do is I want to thank the borough, specifically Leslie and Tom. This process doesn't work without them. I have lost count of the hours that we spent Friday afternoons, going through the weekends. Fran mentioned that we've had a couple meetings with the library, which I think was very helpful for all of us. So appreciate, obviously, your leadership, Tom. You're really setting us up with a good process going forward. I'm just gonna hit the high points on the summary. And the goal that Chad, Al, and I had as we went into this, and if you can scroll down, please, thanks. So, the goals that we looked at was, first of all, trying to reduce the municipal tax, the burden on taxpayers. And I'm happy to report that this contains a modest reduction in the municipal tax rate. At the same time, it reflects no cuts in borough services, which is something that was important to us. The size of the municipal workforce will remain consistent going year to year. It's not going to expand, which is part of the reason that the budget came in where we did. We budgeted cautiously, which will be explained on April 10th. I think the other thing to bear in mind is that property values and private investments remain strong. One of the reasons that we saw, we've seen property values continue to appreciate. And the other thing we've seen is that private investment in individuals in the borough's property has gone up, which is a positive because it means people feel that they can reinvest in their properties, which has also affected the budget. And I think one of the more important things that Tom will get to is the capital budget. We're continuing to invest in infrastructure. So one of the ways that we can reduce the taxes is to reduce capital investment. This is something that we've been able to continue. And I know that there have been several meetings, especially Berners Ave, where we've looked at different budget items that the town can continue. The borough can continue to invest in recreation going forward. So I think we've got a good plan. I'm real excited to hear everybody's questions. Al, I know, is very interested in getting feedback from the public. He's very interested in getting feedback from the town. So please feel free to reach out to him, Chad, or myself with any questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Tom for one of his final roles as administrator and going through the 2023 budget.
Jay, you might add just one thing on the last bullet, which is capital budget and invest in infrastructure. One of the goals when we started this several years ago is to get into a position where a lot of our capital investment came out of cash. And this year, not only did we have cash in reserve to pay for a lot of things, we were able to restore that position going into the next fiscal year. So it speaks to the improvement that the community has, which I'm very proud of.
And I'll just note, I think Leslie and I, our CFO, constantly preach looking ahead 2 or 3 years and to recognize that we live and die by our surplus. The other reason this budget came in as healthy as it did is because our department heads just don't spend everything they're given in their budget. They're ready for emergencies and they know that. And they're able at the end of the year to always return, barring a bad emergency, and to build up that surplus. And then the governing body never looks at that surplus as sort of a slush fund to get some, get tax reductions that aren't rational or responsible. So I think we have a great team, results in a strong budget. So Anthony, can you move down to the next page? So in a big picture, the budget's going from 16.8 million to 17.7 million, a difference of $840,000 or slightly under a 5% increase. It's important to point out there's a difference between the budget and the in-caps budget. What the in-caps budget is it represents our core services, police, public works, admin. The thing that falls outside of the caps budget are things like grants that we work hard towards getting that can vary year to year. So for tracking purposes, it's really important to isolate your core services. So that's the within caps. And that's where we take a lot of pride in the fact that within caps budget is only going up 2.2%. The other stuff is either fee driven or grant driven. Okay. So the amount to be raised by taxes is going from 11.8 to 12.2 million. That's a 3.59% increase, and always like to remind council that 1% of that is dedicated to our aggressive road program that the residents approved in a referendum a few years back. And when we were talking about assessed valuations and assessed values going up, I personally, in my 28 years, feel that when a town is smart about those investments, they have a relationship to the investments that people make. So your investments in parks and in roads and the equipment that can move snow off the roads and equipment that can respond to medical emergencies, word gets out that we do those things well, and they're on the uptick, so those are wise investments to make. Anthony, the next page. So what I wanted to show here is the average assessed residential property is $844,000. And if you can follow along, with the rates, what you'll see on the bottom right-hand side is that, if that's what your property was assessed at last year, and it's assessed at this year, you would realize a $32.35 reduction in your tax bill, only for those municipal portions of the budget. You know, we can't tell you what the schools or the county are charging, where they're gonna land, but that's what this governing body controls. So on the next slide, you'll see the increase in our assessed valuation. So it went up almost $104 million. That's not just reassessment, because that does happen in portions of the town. So you may have a home that's assessed at that 800,000 number, that was in that portion of the town that was on the reassessment cycle. So you won't see that savings, but 2/3 of the town will see that slight reduction. But as Councilman Amberline noted, it's not just the reassessment. It's mixed in there is people making investments in their properties community-wide. So that drives assessed valuation as well. So this is just a broad overview. We'll be back on April 10th at the public hearing to give you a lot more details, but we just wanted to, I guess, remove the drama, or not the drama, but the guessing where we're gonna land.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you to the finance committee, who did a wonderful job. Without it,
We're like 2 or 3 years away from having really good news.
I know. Well, I think
Always
it's
do.
just some of these things we did.
That needs to continue to come off the books.
Yeah.
And, you know, the investments that we're making in downtown will start to return additional revenues to the borough,
Yes.
which will free up capital.
Yeah,
So with that, on behalf of Al, I'll move that resolution 23-86 be adopted in a public hearing on the 2023 municipal budget be held on April 10th, 2023 at 7 p.m.
I'll second.
roll call, please.
Mrs. Mayor,
Yes,
Mr. McLean,
Yes.
Mr. McCready,
Yes.
Mrs. Greenfield.
Yes.
Grandline.
Yes.
All right, mayor's updates. We had another meeting of the Centennial Committee. We've gotten some new members and more people are asking to get involved. So we're excited that things are moving on Centennial. We also had the thank you to Diane, Al, and Christine for the Burns Avenue neighborhood meeting. I think it was really, that must have been close to 50 people there.
Yeah.
Good turnout. Doug and Bob Brightly, Doug Walker did a great job, I think, of answering questions, explaining things, as well as Jeff Walensky. So I think people were pleased with what they heard, and hopefully that project will move along. I did have some people reach out to me afterwards who missed it, and Doug had prepared a nice summary that I've been sharing with people that asked. So, and I think there'll be more meetings, yes.
We'd like to take the show on the road more often. It was fun.
Yeah. So thank you, guys. On March 2nd, I was a mystery reader at the Read Across America at Bedwell School. Amazing what those parents and teachers do for Read Across America. There were 4 books, 4 mystery readers. We had the children's librarian from the library. Leo Horowitz was one, I was one, and Tim Richard was the other one. And it was a great evening. I think they had 170 people for children there. It was really impressive. I was invited with other elected officials to the Saminsky, is that how you say it? Saminsky Theater over at Fellowship Village. If you haven't been to anything at their theater, they do amazing work there. The American Theater Group did a production of Parade, which is moving to Broadway. The at the end of this map. So, they wanted us, the community to know more about their offerings there. It's a beautiful theater, close to home. Our Mayor's Wellness Committee met, we're working on age-friendly issues, and Walter Lane is helping us with getting some of that data, and we're gonna get a focus group together. We had the Memorial Day Committee meeting, so it will be about the parade. And downtown Bernardsville will be doing their car show on the same day, so after the parade, there'll be the car show at the high school, so it'll be a full day of. I attended the Somerset County Business Partnership International Women's Day luncheon. That was sold out with a waiting list of 50. Really nice event, a good panel of women leaders. Then there was the Business Resource Fair at Grand Valley Community College, and a lot of information for businesses that I've been sharing with our business community. We had a meeting with Advance about the Palmer project, so we'll be talking about that in executive. And I attended a downtown New Jersey webinar talking about different ways to get funding for your downtown. Different grants and programs that are available. So that's my report. Tom, what do you have?
Well, just one thing I wanted to share with the community as a governing body is with respect to the financial banking issues in Silicon Valley. And I just want to reassure our residents and the council that we are pretty well protected. New Jersey has in the past adopted something called the Governmental Unit Deposit Protection Act. Acronym is GUPA. And it's a supplemental insurance program created by the legislature to protect the deposits of local governments and school districts. The program covers funds in excess of the FDIC insured amount. Municipalities are required by law to deposit their funds in banks that participate in that program. As part of that program, each bank that participates must pledge additional collateral. If the collateral is not enough, other institutions holding funds would be assessed. While the protections are not 100% guaranteed of the safety of municipal funds, it's important to note that no governmental unit has ever lost protected deposit funds under GUPA.
I'm assuming that we didn't have any bonds that were owned through sale to SVB.
No, but we went and we met with the architect today, and he was telling us that his payroll was actually the payroll company that he works with was partially owned by this company, and payroll was in process over the weekend, so it has a long reach, I think.
Wow. Yeah. All right, let's see, Somerset Hills Country Club Water Hot Box. This is similar to what we did with the church. Yes,
Yes.
so we're requiring screening. That's kind of where we go with that. Because we can't make them move it, it's the water company puts it where they want to put it.
I think, did we do an ordinance about
We did it.
options or something?
When the church requested it,
Yeah.
council passed a motion authorizing the zoning officer to issue a permit pending the zoning officer's approval of the screening plan.
Right, yeah. So we can do the same for this.
Correct.
So we'll make a motion to approve it based on approval by the zoning officer,
With proper screening.
your proper screen.
No second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The Pill Tower height,
Yes, I received a phone call from the county counsel's office, asking if the tower could be 195 feet instead of 175 feet. Now, there was it was somewhat vague as to how tall the tower was going to be when you originally approved it. But you decided to put 175 feet in there with their right to come back and ask for a higher tower. So it's
So they give a reason for the need for the extra 20 feet. I'm assuming it's coverage of some kind of.
That was a benefit. They mentioned that one of the benefits is coverage and also expansion.
yeah. And this is an uphill, hill,
It seemed to be relatively well screened, right?
yes.
Yeah,
Well, the top's not gonna be.
Yeah,
The cops aren't.
Yeah,
but it's not in somebody's
Right.
backyard. or
Correct.
anything. So,
and you seemed amenable to the idea. when they
Yeah.
Originally considered it, it was just, they weren't sure at that point how tall it needed to be.
all right, we good with this? 195, yes.
Okay, can we have a motion to say?
I move to change the height restriction from 175 feet to 195 feet.
No second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, okay, we're good on that. We had a proposal from someone Rug who wants to replace their sidewalk. They wanted to do this Belgian block.
Yeah.
In the front there, Christine brought up a good point about it not being accessible. So, you know, wheelchairs or walkers or
Well, is it their sidewalk or is it the town sidewalk?
it's technically, they're responsible for maintaining it and replacing. There actually isn't a sidewalk there. If you look at the
Asphalt.
picture, it's just, yeah, it's just
Okay.
an asphalt flat there.
It's in the right of way.
It's
It's in the right.
It's on their
Yeah,
property. The right of way is similar to an easement, so it's still on their property.
Yeah,
I could make a suggestion that we do the same where we, if council wants to approve it, we ought to put it into a record where we know that record is related to the property, so I was thinking perhaps require zoning permit for it. So that it's in the system, and within that, we would attach a requirement, sign letter. Well, the zoning permit, the property owner has to sign it, not just the tenant, because the request is coming through from the tenant. So I think it's important that the owner sign it. And that owner acknowledge that he or she is responsible for its ongoing maintenance. And then lastly, I would say our direction to the zoning officer is going to issue the permit without checking with the engineer for standards with respect to, one, meeting our installation standards, because we require beds, you know, that drain, things like that, so things don't heat when they freeze. And that the stone and installation be ADA compliant.
So I'm reflecting back on downtown core zoning. This actually, is this in the redevelopment area?
it's Mill Street, yeah.
It's Mill Street.
Yeah. It is.
So I believe, and now mind you, I need to go look, but there are requirements above and beyond sidewalks. So if they're changing the sidewalks, does that mean that other things are now in effect? Such as, you know, trees and the other things that are part of that requirement?
I don't believe the areas that are signed, haven't seen much design attention.
It has.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a great improvement. I'm happy they're spending money. I want to make sure I'm not violating it in ordinance.
So that's again, why I think, let's plan it with the zoning officer. We'll go through that checklist of items.
Okay,
I agree.
yeah. Good. Do we have any correspondence? I didn't see any. No. Any unfinished business? New business?
No.
All right, then we'll go into executive session. We're not coming out. Are we coming out? No, we will not be coming back. Okay. I'll move to adjourn the executive session. All in favor?